we're gonna explain all the positions, right, of what we consider leg locks. There are 6, roughly, that people talk about, right? Pretty customary. We would call this like 50-50, but you see both of my legs are on the outside, right? And his leg is straight, right? If his leg is straight, we're in 50-50. If it's bent, it's not 50-50, right? They got a bunch of weird names, but remember, every variation that we're going to talk about, there's only 3 variations, matters whether or not it's straight or if it's bent. In either direction, if it was straight or if it was bent, right? So, if I got 2 legs on the outside, right, and it's straight, we're trying to talk about 50-50. Silly name, right? Now, if they're just like this, right, one over or one here, right, we are split, right? This is a different variation. If it's bent, another variation, right? And then double insides, straight, and variation. Those are the 6 variants of leg locks. Whatever side you choose to be on, those are the 6 variants. Does that make sense? Now, is that an oversimplification? Yes, because you can be in a leg lock like this. Am I double inside now? Am I 50-50-ish, right? Is one inside, one outside? There's a bunch of weird shit that can happen, right? But if you look, I'm actually both inside, right? Why? Because I'm inside his hip line, right? If I was out like this, right? I'm one in, one out, double over, right? All these look a little different, but they are all the same core, right? Either both of my legs are on the outside, one is on the in, one is on the out, right? Or they're both on the inside, right? And the only other variation that matters at this point, whether or not his leg is straight or bent, okay? I want you to get in those positions and move around, right? And realize where your legs are and where your feet are in each one of those positions, and be able to tell yourself where they are, okay? Why we're doing this is because pattern recognition is how you master something, okay? Let's do it. So, now that we had the idea of defining positions, right? Some things that you want to remember while you're in these positions, right? No matter what happens, right? Try to stay connected to your elbows and your knees, right? If you're going for legs of any kind, you start doing this, right? And they start to turn or anything, right? It's very easy for that knee line to actually start to free itself, right? Especially if he turns that way when I'm here. Look how easy that knee makes so much space, right? We do the same thing, he turns. No space, can't pull. He goes the other direction. No space, can't pull, right? Don't curl up in a ball and let people touch your head, right? This is fucking stupid. Never let anyone grab your head, right? I can still be curled up in a ball, grab my head, right? So you can touch it, and I can just go, oh, still curl up in a ball, still able to attack, right? So that's something to really remember. His line of defense is really going to be not letting your feet come in contact, able to extend your hip / his hip, right? And then hands, he wants to be able to attach to your hands so you can't touch them, right? If my hand's over here, that means they're not attacking, right? If they're over here, that means you can attack, okay? And then another thing you're looking for, right, is to make sure that you can isolate, pin, and break, right? What am I doing when I'm doing all these leg entanglements, right? I'm here, I'm choosing a limb, right? I'm here, I'm choosing the limb. Even if it's bent or any of that other kind of stuff, choosing the limb. Choosing the limb, straightening, choosing the limb. You turn your leggy for me, I don't want to hurt you. Right, choosing a limb, right? All these things, right? I've only isolated, right? Can you move very effectively right now? No. Right? I'm isolating the leg, I'm pinning the leg, right? And then I can break it. We don't want to be like, oh, I isolated the leg, and you're like, but I can't do anything else to it, right? This happens a lot with leg locks. People will get onto a leg lock and be like, I've got it. And they're like, oh, but how do I get to the breaking part? And you're like, wait a second. And by the time you're here, there's nothing, right? And if they're very bad, you will have something. But you'd be like, aha, I finally got there. And this is awful, Does this feel tight at all? No. Right? So, when you're in these kind of lockdowns and stuff like that, stay tight, then isolate, right? And I can easily break this just by applying a little bit of pressure, right? And then a little bit of turn. Super simple. But just get from these positions, right? Stay tight, right? And if your opponent moves, you want to move with them, stay in control, be able to tighten up, and then if they fully roll, be able to roll with them. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. Apparently that was too tight. If you're a log, aka you're more long, right, and they roll, he's gone, right here. There's very little to control him, right? If he pulls his leg out or anything like that, he's gone. To put this in perspective, you're gonna try to do the same thing to me. Right? They're trying to do a leg entanglement, and I'm like, woo! Very little control. Now, the only other thing that I want you to think about, doesn't really matter super, like a lot right now, is back exposure and foot exposure. When you're doing these things, those are what you're actually combating, right? If I'm attacking his leg, I don't want to offer up so much back exposure that he can just take my back, right? Woo! Fails. He gets my back, right? Woo! It fails. He gets my back. Or counter leg attacks, right? I'm like, haha, I'm gonna go after this dude's leg, right? So what we're looking for is foot exposure or ankle exposure and back exposure. Don't offer too much to your opponent. Everyone good? Give that a few tries. All right, let's get into it. All right, so we didn't catch this on the film for class, so I'm gonna go over it real fast, right? So if you are on cross side finishing, right? What we're looking for is trapping the toes in our armpit, right? We're gonna pinch our elbow. We're gonna turn our wrist upward, right? And then from here, you can just keep it flat palm to your chest, and then take your hand and cup it and like bring it up. Rear naked style, punching, all of those styles of finishing work. But the real thing is to be able to basically trap the top of the foot, cause a slight turn or twist, right? And that's kind of like why we're prying our elbow down. Not only does it get rid of the space in between our arm, right? Pinching it tight to our body makes it much harder to get out and defend and all that kind of other stuff. So we're gonna pinch it to our side, right? And we're basically gonna go flat palm to chest, right? Any variation, again, of finishing like this, right? And you're just gonna curl and then pry, right? As you can see, I don't need a whole lot of force to get that kind of bend, right? And on a human, that's broken, right? I don't have an uke, so I just have this little dummy to play with right now. So hopefully you can get the picture. So we'll be here, right? We're gonna catch, right? And when we catch, we're gonna tuck those toes into our armpit, shoot our hand in, right? Some people like the meaty part of their hand. I prefer using the bone. What I mean by that is I use this section more often than I use this section, right? This section is kind of a meatier section. People who have longer arms typically find greater success when you can kind of cup your own rib cage, right, and get deeper in on it, and lift up and go, right? Same thing with the elbow, your slight twist, right, boom, right? So here, coming in, pinching that elbow to your side. I'm literally making almost like a little C, right? Coming here, boom. Almost causing heel exposure, right? But the heel can't be exposed because it's trapped against my body. So I'm gonna just pry those feet a little bit, causing a slight turn. Even on this dummy, you can see where the knee is, right? It starts to protrude out once I start to pull my elbow, right? Slight twist, turn your wrist, come up, right? Same finishing style on the outside, right? Pinching, like this, causing that slight twist, right? As you see, the toes are trapped in my armpit, right? Slight twist, turn, boom. So you can see it from the other side, all right? If we're on this side though, all right, as we cover in glass, you can follow your side and bridge that way. Yep. You see how I've almost chicken winged myself and I look like I'm gonna turn? What have I actually done? I've captured his toes, right? If I'm here, right, and he boots and I'm like, uncomfortable, max, right? I'm not breaking anything besides maybe one of the biggest bones in his body, right? And you have to be very strong to do that, right? Now, let's say I can't get it, right, and it's booted. I'll come up, I've captured the toes. Yeah, really. That's simple, right? As soon as I capture the toes, it starts to get tight, right? I'm literally doing all the same motions except it's staying tight. I'm lifting up, and then I'm gonna do the chicken wing again, right? So they boot, right? You come up, and then capture. Tracking? All right, give that a try. We'll say, right, if you're coming here, right, and you're crossing the body, right, and I extend out like this is the perfect time for them to try to escape. So when I hug, right, I try to get really deep in my hug, and then I pinch, right, and pinch. Now, obviously, right, same exact thing. We're on the other side, right? But here, I can literally kind of just lay down to my shoulder, right? I'm gonna loosen up, right? Boom. While I'm doing that, my elbow should be trying to touch my hip. Boom. I'm not even holding anything that gets tight, right? Literally nothing. I'm just gonna do this. This hand, obviously, will be in here. When I do that, I'm gonna go very slow. Right here, right, there's a lot of tension, not only on his ankle, but on his heel. Sorry.
Feel it on my foot, too.
Yeah, because it's a sideward bend that's happening, right? If I fall on top of it, right, I'm probably gonna get it. And I only need to go that much with my drive, right? I can drive with my hips, right? Or I can drive with my back, right? Or I can do the combination where you're driving your hips angularly, and you're looking like this. So here, right, we're gonna collapse gently to your partner, right? Try to, not hurt them for this part, right? Once you get to the point where you want to turn your hips, right? Any questions, right? Conversation amongst yourselves, right? And then go back and forth, right? To win, right? So basically what's gonna happen, right? We're gonna have a conversation and be like, I'm gonna win, right? So that means I'm gonna grab, hold, and I'm gonna get into the lock position, right? He's gonna resist, right, to the point, right, that we're like getting into this position. This is super simple, right? You're like, whoo, right? Then I'm gonna start to apply, and he's done, right? And then I'm gonna be like, all right, now your turn. And you see how I didn't really move very far? And this is the point, because we're just gonna get a whole lot of reps. And that's what we're gonna do.